What are some names the Arizona Cardinals should look at the Senior Bowl, free agency, as well as what's the cap situation look like? Let's have a hard reset here. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit the subscribe button. You can hang out with me, watch me scream things out of my big dumb face. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. It's a lot to discuss today. It's going to be kind of a hard reset podcast. What are some Senior Bowl names that should be floating around the immediate vicinity of the Arizona Cardinals? What about free agency? I joined Johnny Venerable of PHNX Cardinals last week. One of my dear friends. It was actually earlier this week, and he brought up an interesting name. I brought up an interesting name, and we did a full segment on it. So I kind of want to replicate that here. And then, what's the salary cap looking like? How much flexibility do the Cardinals have? Where does it rank among other teams? And it's not as high as you would think. I was looking at overthecap.com, and there are a couple teams who had very good years this year who also have a whole lot of cheese under the salary cap next season. So they're positioning themselves better for success. But just a little teaser here. The Arizona Cardinals have very few players under contract for big dollar amounts in 2025. So while step one of this was just have a solid draft and an okay offseason, step two is, have a more proactive offseason and nail another draft. 2025 is all bets are off. Everything is on the table. And it's going to be incredibly fascinating for the next 24 months or so as we watch, hopefully, this Arizona Cardinals organization pivot from dysfunctionality and onward into, perpetual relevance, as close to what that is in the NFL, definition. That's what you hope for. Starting with the Senior Bowl, it's going on right now. The games is, later on this week. There's a couple names that I've gone through the list of the players that are there, watched some tape, some game film and stuff on YouTube, just clips and everything of these guys. There are a couple of guys that have stood out to me. One was listed 2 inches taller than he actually came in at a couple days ago, which kind of has a whole bunch of people pausing, but he's a guy that I think the Cardinals should definitely look at. These are going to be, late day 2, early day 3 guys where you find the real gems of the draft and you can actually build out a roster. I mean, the Cardinals seemingly did it with Michael Wilson and Garrett Williams, with the small sample size we saw this season. So there are a couple of guys here. One, the guy that I mentioned, was Xavier Legette, a wide receiver from South Carolina. The dude is an absolute speed demon. He was listed at 6'3", came in at 6'1" yesterday, which 2 inches, it's a big deal. 6'3" is a big outside receiver. 6'1" is an average-sized outside receiver. He has absolute burner speed. 71 receptions, over 1,200 yards, and 7 touchdowns last season. He's going to be coveted in the middle rounds. I'm not sure if he's going to go in the second round, but he's definitely a good target in the third round for the Cardinals to look at because, listen, even if they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., which, listen, there's going to come a point where I'm not going to fight it anymore. There's going to come a point, and I'm not fighting it. If they draft Marvin Harrison Jr., I will be excited. This isn't something where it's like, it's the worst thing that they could do. It's not going to help the team. Stop it. That's never been what this is about. Having said that, on top of that, they need everything. So if they double up on a wide receiver in the third round, sure. This is going to be a complete overhaul. I don't know how, rationally speaking, the Cardinals bring back Hollywood Brown. I just don't see it. Even franchise tagging him, I don't see it. So if that's the case, they need everything in the wide receiver room, just like they need everything in the defensive line, pass rush, everything like that. But Xavier Legette is a guy. Just check out his film. He's great. Brendan Rice. Now, this is a legacy play. Okay, he had flashes last year at USC. He's Jerry Rice's son. He could be a late fourth round pick if somebody wants to reach. He showed flash. He's a big dude. Okay, he didn't have stellar numbers. 800 receiving yards, 12 touchdowns, because they had so many weapons there. It's wild. I mean, it's impossible to really, like college numbers are so tricky to really translate into what it means. Like you saw Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson just run rough shot. It didn't matter in the SEC who they played. That's NFL talent, okay? And obviously it's translated. But just because you're not an all-world guy in college, numbers-wise, 1,800 receiving yards, 20 touchdowns, it doesn't have to be that. I go back to the phrase I love. It's proof of concept. If you get jammed at the line, do you have good hands to be able to get past and accelerate again? Can you beat top corners? Can you beat a zone? Can you just flat out run a go route and get past the majority of corners in college? Like things like that, that's what'll translate. Hands, obviously. Can you catch everything? And Brendan Rice has shown enough. He's going to get drafted. And it's just interesting. I mean, that's just kind of a legacy play because, I'm a football nerd and I love, watching who the next one's going to be. Obviously, the 4th overall pick, we may see another son of a Hall of Famer. Byron Murphy II. This is a very popular name. Defensive tackle from Texas. Okay. I don't know if he's going to make it to the 2nd round. I don't know. The draft is weird. A lot of times, and we saw like the one that, and I think would pop out to many people's heads is with the Lions, they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs at 12. It's like, what are you doing? If it fits your system, it fits your system. He was a stud this year. He's fantasy football darling, and he will be for the next decade. So Byron Murphy, like if they want, like if there's a team that wants a big run stuffer and an absolute mauler in the interior defensive line, you got your guy. But I'm fascinated to see he translate if he dominates, the top senior offensive lineman of the Senior Bowl. It'll just be fascinating. But that's just another name. And then Ennis Rakestraw, cornerback out of Missouri. Like, if you look at his stats, I think he had 1 interception last year, had a couple, deflected balls. Just because you have 5 interceptions doesn't mean you're a better cornerback than somebody has 0. It's opportunity. How many of those balls were tipped? How many of them were bad throws? Like, the guy isn't huge. I think he's 6 feet, which is about normal for a corner, but he's a baller. He's a glue guy. He's a guy that won't show up in the stat sheet, but you look at him and be like, man, that dude locked down that wide receiver 1. And I don't know, like he's mocked. I've seen him mocked at 27. Because when I would do mock drafts, I see him, a little bit higher. I see him early 2nd round, but that's another guy that I'll be watching, and you should be too, because even though he's not a household name, he's not Kool-Aid McKinstry. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be the best corner in this draft. A couple more names on the offensive line: Tyler Guyton, right tackle from Oklahoma, and Jordan Morgan, left tackle from Arizona. Now, this would be a 27th overall. Well, Jordan Morgan would be a 27th overall. Tyler Guyton would be a little bit lower in the draft, but they're both going to be there. And really, this is all predicated upon if they decide to move Paris Johnson Jr. to the left side. I think they would have moved him to the left side last year if DJ Humphries wasn't playing. We know that Kelvin Beachum can play. He's getting older, obviously. But is it time to move Paris Johnson Jr. to the left and then draft your right tackle for the future at 27? There are 2 guys could do a lot worse than those guys. And I do want to mention one thing really quickly before we pivot to free agent options here is just because players are seniors, they get this I don't know, this scarlet letter on them because they didn't come out a year earlier. I'd much rather have, especially offensive linemen, get as many reps as possible in college. Come in and be ready. What are they, a year younger, 23 and 22? Who cares? Who cares? There weren't many studs in the Senior Bowl last year. It is chock full this year. The Cardinals are in a fantastic position in the right year to have 6 picks in the top 100. Chances are they're not going to draft all 3 in the third. Monti Ossenfort's going to wheel and deal in some capacity, but this is the right year to have 6 in the top 96. That's for damn sure. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What are free agent options? I'm going to discuss 2, the pros and cons of both, and which is the right choice. I'll discuss it next as we roll on here. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out. This is a fun time of year. And the beauty of the NFL for, media members, hosts like me, radio and podcast only now, but there's a 24/7 news cycle. Sure, gets a little bit slower during the summer months, but that's like 6 weeks. It used to be so much longer. When free agency in the NFL was boring, and it wasn't like free agency is always exciting, and it was, more exciting than NHL free agency and things like that. But the NBA, for better or worse, just jet fueled the NFL. Player empowerment, player movement, things like that. It's great. It's how you do it. Like, there's just a lot more things to balance as a GM and head coach and, owner of an organization. Pay the right players. Don't overpay, don't underpay, don't let them walk if you want, franchise. Like, there's just so many different things. And sure, there was always free agency. I mean, the craziest thing, like, look at how far we've come. This is the one that I always remember because I'm an old head at this point. The Champ Bailey for Clinton Portis trade, the Washington and Denver swapping a player for a player. It's like, oh my God, what has happened? What is the world coming to? And then look now. It's like, I wouldn't have it any other way. So there's a couple free agent names that I want to compare. And it's an exercise more on star power, age, already having gotten paid, not happy with contract yet, and then not having gotten paid as a third-round pick yet. And there's 2 names. One, Chris Jones, who I discussed last week. Okay. And before I pivot to the next name, I want to kind of tighten this up a little bit. I'm not saying pay Chris Jones $30 million a year. Never came out of my mouth. At all. What I am saying is he'll immediately be the best player on the team. Immediately. And that's funny. Like, where the Cardinals are in their fragile state, especially on the defensive side of the ball, if they sign a big name free agent, automatically the best player on the team. Isn't that wild? And you can say Buda Baker, but best player on the team, depending on who it is. Chris Jones was unhappy with his contract last season, going into this season. Showed up pretty much week 1 to play. Okay. It's going to be 30. And I'm saying you give him a J.J. Watt type deal. 2-year, $50 million, 35 guaranteed over 2 years, something like that. And you can backload it because they have so much money. Like, you can do signing bonus and you can backload and structure it as such to take advantage of the massive cap space they're going to have in 2025. What the Cardinals need is a little bit of juice. They need a little bit of talent infusion to get them through this, I don't know, adolescent time of their organization as they rebuild. If you got to pay a little bit, but set and forget, Chris Jones is going to be an absolute mauler. that opposing offenses have to account for. The Cardinals don't have any of those at all. They have zero. So you're not going to break the bank for him, but put it this way. I think, and well, you leave it in the comments or you DM me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. What do you think is more likely? That Chris Jones will walk if they win a Super Bowl or if they lose? If they win, I think that'll be 3 for him with him. It's like, okay, this has been fun. I'm out. Or if they lose, and if they lose pretty handily, it's like, okay, I'm out. Or you see the new evil demon in the 49ers, like, nope, run it back, baby. I don't know which one it is. I think that if he wins, he'll go elsewhere. It's like, it's time. Ain't no way the Chiefs paying him $30 million a year. I don't think anybody will. But that's one name where it's like, listen, the Cardinals can swing for the fences at this point. They've got a different product to pitch. This isn't the tired Steve Keim, Cliff Kingsbury, let's just kind of see what happens. And this is a unified, strong front of competent front office members and coaches. Crazier things have happened. 1. And then 2, Justin Madubuike. Okay, so this is a little bit lesser known name, 3rd-round pick in 2020, I believe, with the Ravens. 14 sacks, absolute mauler. If you're watching the game this weekend against the Chiefs, the dude was living in the backfield. Okay, so he, 26, and this is where the comparisons go. This is going to be kind of a balance here. He's 26, hasn't gotten that big deal yet, and he's going to want it. Not a splashy name, 3 years younger. Cost less. Maybe. I mean, I think they were over the cap, I believe it was, or maybe Pro Football Focus were gauging at 4-year, just under $25 million a year. Well, listen, this is what happens when you need to add talent. Oh, too much money. Everything's too much money. Okay, so let's just throw that out the window. These guys make a lot of money. The good ones make a lot. The good players make a lot of money. Okay, and with the salary cap flexibility in 2025, it's going to make this a lot more palatable. But you bring in a guy 26, run stuffer, just collapses pockets, just runs over centers and guards. The Cardinals need somebody like that immediately. So those are just 2 names. It's just an exercise. It's like, because the Cardinals there's going to be a lot of players like that, maybe not at the caliber of Chris Jones or Justin Madubuike, but 2 corners, one's 2 years older, a little bit more expensive, but perennial Pro Bowler, a younger guy, hasn't got that second contract yet. Going to be a little bit less expensive, but we'll see on the all-pro caliber. Like, it's going to be a balancing act for Monti, for Jonathan Gannon. But, luckily they've got the long history of scouting, as I've discussed a lot, and as, most have. That's not an original thing that I found. But all in all, with free agency, and then, listen, we're going to have an encyclopedia worth of free agent primers after the Senior Bowl all the way through free agency, man. Like, trust me, the 2023-2024 season isn't even over yet. Roger Goodell, hyphenate your damn league year. Please. 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 It happens in 2 years. It overlaps. Hyphenate it. What are we doing here? The NFL gets so many things right. Why would you not hyphenate your league year? I don't get it. Anyways, with free agency, like, it's going to be corner. It's going to be pass rush. It's going to be interior defensive line. It's going to be offensive line. It's going to be wide receivers. It's probably going to be a running back, or either that or through the draft. They need to figure out, and it's not like you wouldn't be signing Chris Jones just, ooh, you got Chris Jones on your team. He's wearing number 95 for the Cardinals now. Ooh, yippee. I need people, everydayers, listen to me, please. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, welcome and listen to me. Please try to remove how you've trained your brain into thinking that older players only come here for a paycheck. Please try. J.J. Watt wasn't like that. J.J. Watt wanted to be here. Had a lot of fun. He wanted to be here. Okay? It wasn't Terrell Suggs who stole $7 million from the Cardinals and then went and won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. That would not be this with Chris Jones. Okay? Players are playing for a long time. And if you sign him into a 2 or 3 year deal with an out after the second year, it could be fruitful for both sides. So please try to start an exercise where anytime you hear a name that's over the age of 27 having interest in coming here, the Cardinals having interest in signing him, don't think that it's just for a money grab. Please, this isn't the Cardinals that you grew up with. It's not. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. What's the salary cap situation look like? How much flexibility do the Cardinals have? We'll hit that next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways that, you could end the season with a W. Like, okay, just imagine you've got your Chex Mix. Why would I say Chex Mix? What? Like, I don't know, Cheetos, 7-layer dipsies. I'm in with that. Whatever it is. Libations, lemonade, whatever. You're watching the commercials. You're like, oh, you know what? I got some free time here. FanDuel has so many different ways for you to get a dub, okay? Or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, so much more. And on top of that, new customers join today and you get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, final segment. This is fun, man. The Senior Bowl's so deep that, the talent in this draft is going to be so deep. There's going to be so many stars coming out of this draft. And it's like, well, yeah, you say everybody says that every year. Senior Bowl has never been this chock full. And you could probably account it to NIL, transfer portals, guys getting more run with different schools than maybe, say you're the third left tackle in Alabama and you're a junior. It's like, well, am I ever going to get to play? Something like that. It's like they're getting more time. They're getting more reps. They're getting more run, in turn being more ready to play at the NFL level right away. And it's going to be exquisitely fascinating to see what comes of it. Please go to the YouTube channel, search Locked On Arizona Cardinals, hit that subscribe button. I never ask this. I've got into I don't know why people get pissed off so much. I've got a couple comments on Twitter saying I gave you a 1-star review because I don't like you. So listen, if you're an everydayer and you haven't given a review, you don't have to write anything. You don't even have to give me 5 stars. I just help me combat the review pirates who are just trying to jettison my score. If you'd like. Otherwise, I'm just happy that you're here. But yeah, if you go to where you listen to your podcast, Apple Play, Google Play, whatever it is, and leave a good review, I'd be happy. That would make me happy. Thank you. Salary cap rundown. The Cardinals are going to have over $40 million next year. And it's like, oh, that's a lot. It is. Okay. This is a very run your own race segment here. And I've talked a lot about that, especially with Kyler Murray, where it's like, you can't compare Kyler Murray to anybody. You can't compare him to Joe Burrow. You can't compare him to Justin Herbert. You can't compare him to Patrick Mahomes or anybody else, or Kirk Cousins, or, whatever it is. They got to run their own race here. Kyler Murray is the most exciting quarterback that's ever been drafted by the Arizona Cardinals. And it's not close. You can Neil Lomax me all you want. It's not close. Let's say in the last 30 years, to be fair. Now, with that, there are, I think, 7 or 8 other teams that have more salary cap space than the Cardinals, one of which the Houston Texans. I believe the Detroit Lions do as well. This is what it looks like when the Cardinals are a couple years behind. And that's okay. The Cardinals have plenty of money to go sign a couple free agents or go trade for a couple players and immediately turn around this roster this offseason. The wheels in motion started, and now it's time to really pivot from abstract and future pacing to concrete and next season being 2024, because Roger Goodell refuses to hyphenate the year. So with the amount of salary cap cheese that they do have, I've constantly been thinking about this, and it's like, how do you build this roster? what's the most effective way to build this roster? And I think it needs to start with one thing. Not draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm kidding. It's build a strength. Build a strength. Especially on defense. Target a position group that you like in free agency, that you like in the draft, and double it up. Who's to say the Cardinals don't sign Matabike or Chris Jones and then also draft Byron Murphy II? Why not? What does it matter? You need to allocate. You need to allocate funds and draft capital in an effort to build this roster with the most stability like that. If that starts with building the defensive line, having a good defensive line makes everybody's job easier. It makes a linebacker's job easier. It makes a cornerback's job easier because they collapse pockets. It allows the pass rushers to get home more, which allows the corners not having to defend for as long each play. Opportunistic, sacks, fumbles, interceptions, starts with the line. Okay? So say they do that and say they take a large chunk and they want to throw it at the best defensive lineman in free agency. And then you want to draft the best defensive lineman available at the top of the second round. Boom, strength. And then you can add a couple corners, you add a running back, you add a receiver, whatever it is. That's like my, heart eye emoji moment. Say they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Fine, good. Set and forget. Perfect. Now you have 27, top of the second, and then 3 picks in the third round ahead of the 96 pick. Does Monti Ossenfort move back up into the second round and, pair a couple of those 3s? Does he trade future capital to move back up? What is he going to do in free agency that will yield the least path of resistance in the draft? Because that's really what it is. You don't want to not do well in free agency and then force young players to play right away when there are expectations, which will be at the beginning of, rookie mini camp this summer. So with salary cap specifically, I think they need to allocate the majority of their funds to 1 star or 2 B+ guys. And if they play the same position, sweet. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's something that you look at, you can get a corner and you can get a defensive lineman and you can get a pass rusher. Cool. They're all still weak positions because the Cardinals have no talent in the pass rush. They have no talent in the interior defensive line. And they have no talent in the cornerback room. We'll see about Garrett Williams. We'll see about, BJ Ojolari, Kazir White's coming back. We'll see what they do with Zaven Collins. But, the actual depth, the set and forget nature of a strength, the Cardinals do not have that on their roster on the defensive side. So what Monti Ossenfort chooses to do with the $40 million, I don't know what his, because nobody knows, what his blueprint's going to look like. We don't know, obviously. But a win for me, doesn't matter what the names are, could be a bunch of B-level players. It doesn't matter. You don't need a superstar. I use Chris Jones as an exercise because he's probably going to be a free agent, in my humblest opinion. They're not going to franchise tag him for $30 million. They're like, they're going to franchise tag him. They're not going to give him between $25 and $30 million next year. I don't see it. I use it as an exercise. So say, he's a number 1 free agent. The Cardinals can go get him. They won't have to completely overpay for him because they actually have a product they can show to people saying, you know what? With more talent, look how great this can be. So if Monti Ossenfort wants to go that route, do it. But my heart eye emoji scenario would be if they double up one position in free agency and allocate the majority of the funds to that. Not majority. You allocate a good amount of funds to that. 2 defensive linemen, 2 pass rushers, 2 corners. It doesn't matter. And really, when I say that, I'm not saying that flippantly. It doesn't matter. They need to start checking boxes immediately in Sharpie, not in pencil. In Sharpie, not on a dry erase board. They need to have set and forget talent on this team in positions that matter on defense. And as of right now, they're devoid of it. It'll be fascinating to see what happens. And there's going to be so much more of this conversation. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Without you, there is no me. Remember that. I'll talk to you tomorrow.